Community Highlights. Another local exclusive from Southeastern Michigan's news and information station, MonroeCountyRadio.com.
This is our town, the place we call home.
Welcome to This Is Our Town with Jeff Yorkey, a local public affairs presentation on MonroeCountyRadio.com. Brought to you by Allen Chevrolet Cadillac. All roads lead to Chevrolet. Here's Jeff Yorkey.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of This Is Our Town. I am Jeff Yorkey. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And in our town today, we have Marsha, Oberleiteri. Marsha, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff. It's great to be here.
It is great to have you. And Marsha is going to be talking a little bit about the Alzheimer's Association here in Monroe. And Marsha, how did you get involved in that?
Well, I actually applied for a job there about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I had been 20 years at Lazy Boy, and I was looking for something different, a whole different, a retirement job, so to speak.
Right.
My job is part-time, and I work with Monroe and Lenawee. And so I applied to be the walk manager for Monroe and Lenawee. And it has been one of the more rewarding experiences of my life at this point in my life.
Yeah.
I have met so many amazing people and who have such dedication, and I've learned more about Alzheimer's disease than I probably would have ever thought I would have wanted to know.
Right.
But it's really important.
It is really important. And, it seems a little crazy because, I grew up in the 80s. I was, Ronald Reagan was president. And I'll never forget when that announcement came that he had Alzheimer's disease. And then I was always disturbed by the fact that because I'll be honest with you, when I was growing up, I thought Ronald Reagan was just like the coolest guy. I loved Ronald Reagan.
Cool guy.
He was. I was so envious of that guy. And then I'd hear these stories about how he was. He would just sit for hours. He'd stand for hours by the swimming pool that they had in his ranch house in California after he retired, and he would take all the leaves out of the swimming pool. And then the Secret Service would ask Nancy, well, what do you want us to do with them now? And she'd say, just put the leaves back in the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't remember that he did it.
Right.
And it's to him, it's comforting. It's like giving someone a load of laundry all day long. Dump the load, put it back, because their short-term memory is that short, especially as they progress.
And we were talking last week a little bit about dementia and Alzheimer's, and we were discussing what's his name? Tony Bennett.
Tony Bennett, yes.
Tony Bennett and Glenn Campbell.
Yes.
And both of those guys, that when you got them up on stage and they started singing, all of a sudden they seemed like they were fine.
That is the last part of the brain to go. It's that musical, temporal part of the brain that is the last to go, so that if you go to an assisted living or anything like that, you'll hear that music playing, because music is still something that they can still relate to. So you had to have learned just a ton about this. How much did you know about this when you applied for this job? Did you have it in your family or anything like that? Or? Well, I did, but I didn't think about it when I applied. Yeah. My grandpa, when in the 80s, had what they called senility.
Yeah.
And that's what they used to call Alzheimer's dementia back in those days. He was senile. He was in a nursing home in Kansas. They tied him to his bed. Well, he screamed all day. And that was what I would hear about him, and it was just accepted as a normal part of aging. Yeah. And I remember hearing about my grandpa and thinking, wow, that was really sad, but I was a kid.
Right.
Didn't really pay too much attention to it. Didn't really have it. I would worry about my parents, but I didn't really understand the depth of just how much you change when you have Alzheimer's disease, and just how hard it is on the family, and just how many people have it, which is what I've learned so much. 6 million people in the United States have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and that is growing as people like me, who are 60, start hitting that baby boomer age.
I know, and I got to tell you, as I'm getting up there, I'm 55, and so I'm starting to think about that because you're right. Now, back in the day, they called it senility, dementia, whatever, and a lot of these people certainly were suffering from Alzheimer's. They had no idea. What kind of are they making any breakthroughs as far as you know? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the Alzheimer's Association was founded about 30 years ago, maybe 35 now. And the idea of it was Alzheimer's is named after a man whose name is Alzheimer's. Couldn't go through the whole story with you, but it's the actual changes are happening in the brain. It's not just a normal part of aging. So there's tau, and there's like the brain gets kind of mixed up and it starts to shrink, and the signals don't connect. That's a layman's term for it.
Sure.
And they began to realize that maybe there was support that needed to be held for people, and that we needed to figure out why. So we're about 30 years behind the American Cancer Society when they started trying to study how we can help cancer.
Yeah.
Just this past year, they introduced the first drug that's been shown to reduce the progression of the disease, and it's called aducanumab. And it was introduced actually a year ago.
Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, aducanumab. I had to practice.
Yeah, I'm
a
not
lot.
repeating it.
I think it's called Aduhelm, but they have 2 names. Every drug has 2 names.
Of course. Yeah.
And the problem with Aduhelm or aducanumab is that it's extremely expensive, and so it isn't affordable. It isn't available on Medicare, and it's not affordable. So,
No.
but what we were excited about.
Imagine that.
Yeah, what we were really excited about as an association, because we're very much into advocating and working with our government to help get more research, is that it's the first drug.
Yeah.
Which means there will be more. And I had a research presentation yesterday at work, and they said there's at least 20 more drugs coming down the pipeline that are going to be sent to the FDA for approval. They also do research on lifestyle changes, history. There's some community in southern South America that has no Alzheimer's in it.
Really?
They're trying to study that community to figure out why. So the other thing that research is really trying to do is to figure out how it started. Because once the Alzheimer's kicks in, it's not reversible. You can't bring back damage that's been done to the brain. But if you can figure out, you may have signs as early as 55, your brain is making that change, but you don't know it until the symptoms start to appear. So what they're learning is PET scans, and they're even looking for blood biomarkers, this is what the research has been trying to figure out, is what starts it. Because if we can stop it before it starts, people don't have to go through it.
Yeah.
And they can maintain their memories and their decision-making ability right to the end of their life, because it's tragic to see somebody not be able to do that in your family.
Absolutely. I bring this up all the time on the show. Life really ain't anything more than a collection of memories as it is. Right? So without them, you ain't got life.
We went camping this past weekend with my husband and my whole family, 39 of us, and all we talked about was how all our memories camping.
Yeah.
I'm not a camping fan, but
Right.
we talked about the memories that we had when he took his girls, when he was single, and he took his girls camping when they were little, and then he took his grandkids camping, and now his grandkids are in their 20s, and now we're taking our nieces and nephews camping, and all the different places that we were camping, and I can't imagine him not being able to share that with everyone, and carry
Marsha,
that.
You know what's interesting is I'm a prosecutor, right? And I tell kids this, and I tell other people that are interested about, the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt to find somebody guilty of a crime.
Yes.
And that's because we take away the most important thing that they have, which is their freedom. But it really isn't. The most important thing that people have is those memories, right?
Yes.
Because that is really, in essence, what life is all about. Now, I got a question, because I've always wondered about this. How long, from the time that somebody gets diagnosed with Alzheimer's, how long usually until
death?
Till death, yeah.
And
is it Alzheimer's that causes death, or does it?
It's kind of a failure to thrive, but what happens is eventually you forget how to swallow, you forget how to eat.
Really?
You forget how to go to the bathroom, and then they don't drink water. They forget how to live.
Yeah.
And then they eventually, usually something else might get them first, but it's the body forgets how to be alive.
Really?
Wow.
And
although you do see people with Alzheimer's who have tremendously strong bodies, and they live a lot longer, but on average, it's 7 years from diagnosis to death.
Wow, really?
I've heard people gone as long as 14 years. Some have gone as long as 3. Also depends on the type of dementia you have. Dementia is an umbrella term that signals any kind of memory loss, any kind of cognitive function, lack of function. Alzheimer's is 65% of all dementias are Alzheimer's, which is a specific thing happening in the brain. But there's also Lewy body dementia, which Robin Williams died of, which is faster moving, more paranoia, more hallucinations. There's frontal temporal, which might become caused from a brain injury. A lot of the football players that you hear that end up with dementia, it's damage in the front of their brain. There's 3 or 4 others. There's several types, but Alzheimer's. So when we say we're the Alzheimer's Association, it's Alzheimer's and other dementias, because we do supply information for families. Because the bottom line is you're experiencing memory loss and issues. It doesn't matter.
Do you know? I mean, are there certain habits that we can either engage in or avoid that will make Alzheimer's more or less prevalent?
Well, there's a study out. It's like a heart and mind study, and they basically say what's good for your heart is good for your brain.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the fruits, the vegetables, the exercising, the word games that you try to play with yourself. They say there's these games where you do the alphabet backwards. You do some of that kind of stuff. And definitely, if you want to go to our website, alz.org, you can see some of the examples of top 10 ways to enhance your brain. And a lot of it is just basic lifestyles. But some people, it's hereditary. And if your grandmother and your mother and so-and-so had it, it's probably going to be that no matter what you do. I've seen some absolute brilliant educators, teachers, people who are brilliant and end up with Alzheimer's.
Wow.
So it's not just that, but it doesn't hurt. And that's one of the things that they, one of the research things that they're working on is lifestyle.
So this education for you had to be having learned all this stuff, having done this for 6 years, like you have.
Yeah.
How has that affected you?
Oh, it's made me a kinder person.
Yeah.
If that's possible. I was always pretty nice, people will say, but it has made me kinder and more understanding and less concerned with the big details of life. I forgive so much faster. I have so much more compassion. Little things that used to bother me don't bother me anymore because I realize that it's when you look at the faces of the families of someone who has Alzheimer's and they're haunted because, or you talk to someone who has Alzheimer's and they're giving you that blank stare, you realize that there's just a lot of stuff in your life that really doesn't matter. And what matters is love and being with your family and caring about people and just giving the best that you can to your community. And I think I always say that working for the Alzheimer's Association made me a better person.
Yeah.
Because I can be so compassionate and I can sit next to someone on an airplane and talk to them and they find out what I do and I end up comforting them.
Sure.
Or giving them our 800 number. Call our 800 number and we have social workers 24/7 that you can talk to that will help you.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, and because obviously the Alzheimer's Association, the purpose is to assist people in the that are dealing with this. I would assume families that are dealing with it, right? The actual individuals perhaps that are dealing with it to some extent, but and then awareness, right? So that we can get the research done that's needed, right? So tell us a little bit about what the Alzheimer's Association does and how it affects us right here in our community.
In Michigan and the community. So it's official. Our official description is that we're the leading volunteer health organization in Alzheimer's care, support, and research. So we provide care programs for people, support as in training and education and an 800 number, and a lot of research. We're the third largest producer of research behind the governments of the United States and China. And we can go and do some of those research projects that maybe the governments wouldn't approve because they have to follow certain requirements.
Sure.
And of course, our vision is a world without Alzheimer's disease. But here in Michigan, we have a Michigan chapter. That's where I work, the Michigan chapter out of Southfield. I work out of my home in Monroe, and I work in Lenawee and Monroe counties. But we have a lot of impact. We have 90 support groups in Michigan, and 7,200 people have called our helpline, the 1-800 number, which I'll share with you in just a moment. But here in Monroe, we've had training for 239 people. We've had 481 contacts, and we have 2 support groups. One is the second Monday at Aspen Grove, and the other one is on the fourth Thursday at Trinity. So if people need help, we have that ability.
Aspen Grove, that's
it's the
down in
assisted
South
living down in Temperance.
Right, down in South County in Temperance, and that's right off of Lewis?
Yes.
Yes.
I believe it's a very large facility.
Yes.
Do I have the address here?
And
it's on Secor Road, 7515 Secor.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and the other one was where?
At Trinity Lutheran on Scott Street.
Okay, that's
and
right
the times,
here in
if you
town.
need to sign up for that, our 800 number is 1-800-272-3900, and they can get you registered for those support groups.
Okay.
Just a couple things I think are really cool that we offer is if you have wandering is a big issue for someone who is still at home with Alzheimer's. I had a friend whose father had Alzheimer's, and they took the car keys away from him and hit him. He found the car keys when his wife was out, drove to Tim Hortons, came and walked home. So they get home and they're, "Where's the car, Dad?" And I don't know. I've been sitting here this whole time.
Oh, no.
So they went up to Tim Hortons, found the car up there, and he had walked home.
How did they find the car? How did they know?
He left it at Tim Hortons.
But did he know he was at Tim Hortons?
No, he never even knew he was there.
How did they know he went to Tim Hortons?
Because he went there every day.
Oh,
he was a real habit of going to Tim Hortons.
You know, is that common? if you have Alzheimer's and you do that wandering kind of stuff, is it common that you engage in the same sort of behavior day after day? And I wonder.
There is a certain repetition. I think that it's helpful, but that might go on for a while, and then it might be something different.
Yeah.
But yeah, keeping them occupied, I think. There's actually also an adult daycare program. I need to mention this at the Frenchtown Senior Center. So you have a person with Alzheimer's in your family, and you need a break.
Right.
You just need to drop them off. They'll entertain them for several hours. The fees are sliding, so it's very affordable.
Sure.
And it's at Frenchtown Senior Center, and it's an amazing program. I really need to help promote them because they're not getting as much. I don't think people are as aware of them. With COVID, everything started dropping off, and we want to let people know that they have that program.
So, let me stop you there because that sounds pretty fascinating. So it provides families with a respite.
It's adult daycare, like
Adult
children's daycare.
Do they engage in any activities with the
Yes,
folks?
they do painting and they do music and they feed them and they watch TV. They'll do coloring.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost childlike, but they will keep them occupied and whatever level they're at. And until they're to the point where they may need to go in a nursing facility, which is usually when they can't eat and they can't care for their bowels and things like that. But until that point, it's a way for a family to get a little bit of respite.
Okay.
And we can help pay for that too. We have, for people in Monroe County, we have $1,000 scholarships available that they can use to help pay for that, to bring someone in your home, to use a company like Visiting Angels, which is a care company that can come in your home. We have $1,000 that we can give you annually. And it's not income required.
Wow.
All you got to do is ask.
That's cool.
And I try to get that word out. We also can get a medic alert.
Okay, Marsha, I'm gonna interrupt you for a second because Brody's giving me a dirty look. We got to take a quick break. My good buddy John Allen, he wants to tell you a little bit about John Allen or about Allen Chevrolet.
Gotta love Allen Chevrolet.
Those guys are awesome, and
They're
they sponsor the
sponsors, too,
show.
of the walk.
Yeah, well, there you go.
They have Alzheimer's in their
They
family.
sponsor everything. They always do the coolest things.
Yep.
Those guys are the best.
They are.
So we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, I'd like to talk about the walk.
Yes.
And I also like to talk a little bit more about some of the stuff that you guys do here in the community. I think it's really cool. Sound
Great.
good?
Yes.
All right, back right after this message from Allen Chevrolet Cadillac.
When you're looking for a new or used vehicle, you want the best selection to choose from. Allen of Monroe is the largest volume Monroe County dealer with 300 new and used vehicles on their lot. That's way more than the other dealers. Allen Chevrolet of Monroe has been voted the best Monroe County dealer of the year for the past 3 years. When you want the best selection at a great price, there's only one dealer in Monroe County that delivers. Allen of Monroe.
And welcome back. If you're just joining us, I'm here with Marsha Oberleiteri. She is with the Alzheimer's Association here in Monroe, and Marsha has been enlightening us maybe more. I'm learning more than I want to about Alzheimer's. Boy, I tell you what, I know it impacts a lot of people, a lot of people, but it is a scary disease, and believe me, when you start getting older, like we were talking about, 55, 60 years old, you start thinking about that kind of stuff. And I don't know about you, but in my job, where I am constantly, reading, I'm using my brain all the time. And I don't know how many times I forget these little things. I forget the name of something. I forget, whatever. It could be a person that I've known for years, and all of a sudden I can't think of their name.
But you remember it a little bit later.
Eventually.
And someone with Alzheimer's won't remember at all.
Yeah, well,
So reassure yourself
I'll remember
a
that.
bit.
I have I got to tell you this funny story. I was doing a trial one day, right? And I had a friend of mine. He was my co-counsel, my second chair, and we were doing this PowerPoint presentation. And there was this section in the PowerPoint where every time we got to this one slide, I would forget what I was supposed to say. And it had to do with driving a car or something like that. So my buddy, he'd make this gesture that like he was driving a car. And so sure enough, I get into my closing and I'm going at it and I'm doing, my Jeff Yorkey hand things and we're talking about this case, and all of a sudden we get to this slide and I can't remember. And I look over at my buddy and he goes like this, and bam, it hits me and I immediately get it. And I'm like, but after that trial, I was like, oh man, I hope I'm not getting it, But it's scary, isn't it?
It is scary when you forget names. I've been doing that my whole life, so I don't worry too much about it, but it can hit people. Some of the people that I know have been in their 50s that have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's died before they were 60. It's terribly frightening.
Yeah.
But what we do is we have a walk here in Monroe County
Yeah.
that raises money toward the Alzheimer Association, and I think it provides the people that go and participate in this walk
Right.
with a feeling of hope and that they're making a difference.
And that's kind of the lifeblood for you guys, right?
Yeah, our
Yeah.
walk is one of the primary ways we raise money. Of course, there's memorials, and we have a program called The Longest Day, but the walk raises about $98 million annually
Wow.
to help fund all of the services programs that we do. We have 500 walks across the country, 600 walks, 500,000 people across the country
Yeah.
that walk, and every year. And our walk in Monroe is coming up in October.
Okay.
It started back, this is our 10th anniversary.
All right.
So back in 2012, a group of people, I wasn't part of it, but there was Beth Ann Choate and Janet Satilli, and a few other people that came to the association and said, we want to do a walk here. They lost some relatives. So 2012, they raised $23,000. Last year, we raised $52,000.
Wow.
So we've doubled it in 10 years, what we're
Yeah.
raising. And we get about 350 people that come to the walk. So it clearly affects people in Monroe County because they wouldn't come out and do it if it didn't.
Sure. So if I want to get involved in the walk, what I mean, let's say, I suppose there's a number of things I could do. If I don't want to walk, I could sponsor something, right?
Yes.
You'll always take money, of
Yes,
course.
we do always take money, but there's a registration site for the walk. It's alz.org/walk, and then you look for Monroe County, and you can register and you can start a team. If you're going to walk with a group of people, start a team. Friends, friends, or whatever you want to do. We do have companies that are sponsors. We have several in Monroe County, including Lazy Boy and Allen Chevrolet, who are major sponsors of the walk as well. And they bring teams out too. So they come out that day and they walk with us. There's no minimum financial commitment to walk. You don't have to commit at all. You don't have to give us any money. We will still welcome you. You can walk with us. You get a Promise Garden flower, which is a flower that represents the reason why you walk. And we have a ceremony that is like we call it the world's largest support group for people living with Alzheimer's. It's over within about 3 hours. So we meet on a Saturday morning at 9:30. We have our opening ceremonies. Last year, Bob Vergils was our master of ceremonies.
Bob?
He's amazing.
All
I hope
right.
he comes back this year, Bob. We then walk through the IHM property, and we come back, and people go on about their day. Some of the families go to lunch afterwards, and purple, of course, is our color theme. So if you do raise $100 or donate $100, you get a T-shirt, the official Walk Day T-shirt, and then they have incentives up above that, like $500, $1,000, $2,500. And we have teams that do that raise $5,000. ProMedica Hospital, huge team for us. And
how do they raise the money? They just
from things like bake sales to flowers to selling auctions. A lot of people are doing auctions to Facebook. Facebook is a huge fundraiser. I'm walking. I post that I'm walking.
Yeah.
I tell my story and people donate because they've had it in their family and they donate. So
that's a cool idea.
Definitely. It's definitely
now, how
not
long is the walk?
It's about a mile and a half, I think.
Oh yeah.
You just start at the park at St. Mary's Park, and you walk around the IHM and come back. So it's not overly long. You don't have to walk if you don't feel like walking. You could just come for.
But
the
you got to walk
ceremonies.
because it's good for your heart, and if it's good for your heart, it's good for your brain.
Although I will confess that I did drive it last year because I had to go back and pick up all the signs, and we picked up a few stragglers that weren't quite making it all the way around. So yeah, you could start a team, you could start a sponsorship. I like to talk about our education programs.
Yeah.
I was telling you just before we started.
Let's do that.
We have education programs that are about an hour long. Top 10 signs, communication strategies, understanding Alzheimer's and dementia. And we offer these to companies free of charge. So you do not have to give us a donation. We'll take it, but it's not required. We just did one for Monroe Community Credit Union for all their tellers. They had a teller retreat. They said they wanted one of our people there to come and talk about the top 10 signs because what's one of the first people that might notice someone that's off?
Oh, sure.
A teller.
Sure.
Who's coming in with a relative or family member wants to drain their account. And you can tell it's not quite right.
Right.
So I tell everyone that story now because I think it's a brilliant idea on how to use our programs.
Yeah.
And
that's so. Let me before we get too much into the program itself. You know that everybody wants to know the top 10 signs. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, because it's not. And let me ask you: the top 10 signs? I mean, are these things that you could notice about yourself, or is it more likely that they're going to be things you're gonna recognize in a loved one?
People have it both ways. Sometimes the loved one recognizes it themselves, but they're really good at hiding it. Mm-hmm. And other times it's a family member that might notice it.
Yeah.
I've heard it both ways. So sometimes you recognize it in yourself, if it's early on, but most of the time it's someone that around you, the repetition, the repeating themselves, things like that.
Yeah.
One of them is just memory loss that disrupts daily life. We all forget people's names from time to time, but they remember later. That's what they always tell me.
Like we talked about.
Did you remember later? But you're putting keys in the freezer when you're not doing things that are logical, that make sense, you know? So that's why we turn off people's stoves when they get dementia, because they can burn themselves and hurt themselves. Challenges and planning problems, which is why people end up having to retire. The one gentleman I knew was a school teacher, and he was having trouble at work. And he may not have realized he was having more trouble at work, but his coworkers, he ended up getting let go or having to retire.
Really?
And they said it was stress. He went to the doctor, and the doctor said it's just stress.
What was he doing?
He was a high school principal, actually, in Bedford.
Yeah.
Bedford Elementary School.
And what was happening?
He just couldn't keep up with his tasks at work.
Oh, yeah.
And he went to the doctor, and the doctor said his name was Ken Groff.
Yeah.
He was from Blissfield. He's from Blissfield. He worked in Bedford.
Yeah.
And he couldn't keep up with his schoolwork, his paperwork.
Yeah.
And he went to the doctor, and the doctor said, it's just stress. If you eliminate the stress, you should be better. So he retired. But his family noticed 6 months later it wasn't any better.
Getting any better.
Then they went back and did the testing, and they do some to test it. They do literal physical testing, asking you memory questions, and how you score on that is a good sign. If you have enough money, they can do a PET scan where they can actually see what's going on in the brain. But usually they don't have to do that. They can usually start to tell from the symptoms.
Yeah.
Spatial relationships, visual images. Sometimes, they don't want they can't see on the side very well. So when you're talking to them, you have to get like right in front of them. New problems with the words. Say the wrong word for what they are trying to say.
Oh, yeah.
And it's totally off. Misplacing things. That's where,
most of these so far, Marsha, I only have when I drink too many martinis.
There you go. Well, this is the next one to relate then. Decreased or poor judgment.
Oh, great.
Like taking out all my money out of the bank. Or that happens when you drink too.
Yeah.
And then another one that you really start to notice, they stop participating in things. They can't keep up with the conversation, so they just start withdrawing from social activities, or you find them in another room. They can't keep up with what's happening, so they just start withdrawing. And then a lot of people have changes in their mood or personality, where they were really nice and they become really nasty, and they start swearing, and they're like, who is that? That's not who I knew as my dad. And that can be one of the more challenging behaviors to deal with, as someone who is hostile.
Yeah. That's why my wife doesn't let me drink too many martinis too. But no, you know what though? And I always hear about that. That's the thing that people really notice, is that all of a sudden, hey, did you notice Uncle Jim was kind of a jerk today?
Yeah.
And then a few months later, you find out, oh, you know what? He's suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that.
And his personality is changing.
Yeah.
He's not the same Uncle Jim that you knew.
Yeah. That happened to my Uncle Jim. I wonder if that wasn't it. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's that, because that was many years ago.
Well, when you're looking at one out of every 6 over the age of 65 get diagnosed with some form of dementia, and then when you get to be 85, it's 1 out of 3. You know that it can happen, and so it's just something that's very terrifying to people.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to. But the thing is, the person who has dementia eventually gets to the point where they don't know.
Yeah.
And they're just being taken care of. It's the family members that struggle with it. But those early stages, like if I thought that I didn't have control over where I was going to live and what I was going to do, that would make me crazy.
My mother-in-law, I love my mother-in-law. She gets herself so worked up when she forgets little things and I'm glad we had this conversation because now I can tell her, hey, you know what? You figured it out a couple minutes later.
Right.
You're good.
That's the important thing.
Because she gets herself so worked up thinking that she's got... Yeah, it's happening to her.
Does she have relatives that it also happened to?
No, not that I know of. But you know what? To be honest with you, I mean, a lot of the... Like, I think she's outlived both of her parents. And so I think that she doesn't know what to expect anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that she worries too much about that.
And there could be a social isolation aspect, too, where she's... But the important thing is... I'm not a doctor. You're not a doctor. Get to a doctor.
Exactly.
They can do the cognitive testing.
If you suspect it, check it out.
Yes. Go to it. And neurologists are the doctors of choice, but usually people start with their general practitioner, and then from there, if they suspect, they can do the testing in their own clinic,
Yeah.
and then they can send you to a neurologist if needed. But there isn't a whole lot of treatment, so there's some
that's-
drugs that they will
that's
give
the-
you to just manage symptoms for a couple of years.
Right.
Um,
But
I
nothing
don't-
slows it down yet.
Nothing
right?
except for they say that
That-
educatamab that
Yeah.
can slow down, but costs way too much for the average person. But we're getting there.
Yeah.
I mean, this is 30 years and we're finding something.
Yeah.
It's really
right?
encouraging for
yeah,
me.
because before there was zip,
Yes.
right? So,
Yep.
well, you know what? I wish we had time to go over your entire presentation that you give to these companies when you go see them,
Yes.
right? But if you are one of those companies and you want to enlighten some of the folks in your in some of the employees, how would I contact you to set something like that up?
I'm here in Monroe, so my number is 734-652-8946.
Okay.
Text or call,
Okay.
and I can set something up.
And we'll put that on the Facebook page.
Yeah, they can also
I'll
call the
talk
800
Michelle
number,
into it.
but they
Yeah.
don't have to because I'm
Yeah.
right here.
Right.
If you're a family member who thinks, oh my gosh, I'm hearing something that sounds like my family member,
Yeah.
then I would encourage you to call the 800 number because I'm not
Right.
I'm not a social worker.
Okay.
But
the
if you,
800 number again is?
it's 800-272-3900.
3900,
So if
got
you're
it.
looking for advice, feedback, I need to know. We've had little girls call in the middle of the night that their parents were, people get night terrors and
Yeah.
things that happen at night, and the social workers are there 24 hours a day,
Yeah.
trained to help with that situation. But if you're looking to get your company involved or a friends and family team involved in the walk, we'd love to see you out there. We'd love to do a training program for you. That's what we just had, a leadership breakfast, and invited 100 businesses in Monroe to come.
Yeah.
We got about 10, which I thought was a pretty good number.
Yeah.
And they were really impressed by everything that the Alzheimer Association does,
Well, I'll
even
tell you
here in
what.
Monroe County.
Yeah, well, and I think that we have really literally scratched the surface here on all the stuff that you guys do. And maybe when we get a little closer to the walk isn't until October, maybe we get a little bit closer, maybe come back on the show. We can talk
Yeah.
a little bit more about it, get
And
more people involved.
I can even bring a guest with me that is undergoing the experience with a family member, and they can share their
that
stories.
would be great. I
Yeah.
think that would be very enlightening.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Hey, thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Marsha.
I love the
really-
opportunity to talk about what I love doing. So
Yeah, and it's so good to have you. So good to have you. Marsha Oberleiter from Alzheimer's Association, I want to thank you so much for being on the show.
thank you.
All right, that is all the time we have for this edition of This Is Our Town. I'm Jeff Yorkey. I want to thank everybody for listening. And now let's go bobbing around Monroe with my good buddy, Bob Virgils. Take care. See you next week, everybody.
Join us every Sunday at noon and Tuesday at 7 p.m. for another edition of This Is Our Town with Jeff Yorkey, a local public affairs presentation on MonroeCountyRadio.com. Brought to you by Allen Chevrolet Cadillac. All roads lead to Chevy.
This is our town, the place we call home.